I'm Steve Clune. I am Manager of English Programs for beIN Sports in MENA. So my responsibility is I look after all of the English language channels for beIN Sports in the Middle East. There's two of them, so I manage all the content, live, non-live, all the studios. So that's sort of my role here with beIN.
And what brings you to Web Summit?
First time here. Second time the company's been here, but obviously it's super important for the company. This is year 2 of 5 for the Web Summit being in the country, and I think there was a real feeling that we had to be here, represent the company. They wanted the brand to be on site. They were very keen, or there's a real keenness for people to see what we do, how we operate, how we use technology. It's been a great opportunity for people to sort of experience what we do, front of camera, behind the camera. So we've tried to make this interactive, but I think we've been very keen to. I think there's a lot of sort of international media here, and I think many of them will be aware of the brand, some will not be, but there's an awful lot of what we do, whether it's sports or entertainment, and I think it's been an opportunity for us to sort of show off the brand regionally, but also sort of globally.
So founded in 2014, give me a bit of a kind of rundown of kind of the story today.
Well, yes, company is now, where are we now? We're sort of 11 and a half, 12 years. I think it's a company that is sort of, it's prestigious, the rights that we own, the content that we broadcast. We are, major rights holders now for Champions League, for Premier League, FIFA, all UEFA, NBA, ATP, Grand Slams. I probably missed something out, but there isn't there's very few high-profile sporting rights that beIN do not own and do not broadcast across the MENA region. So we broadcast to 24 regions or 24 countries in the MENA region. There's 40 countries that we cover globally, and I would say that the brand has grown incredibly in the last sort of few years, and I think that there's a real sort of recognition. You speak to, I think, any of the major sporting federations globally, and there's a real, we're seen to be a sort of a major player and a major partner amongst sort of global sport, I would say.
And obviously technology has been a key driver in much of the innovation that you've delivered. What for you kind of springs to mind? What milestones do you kind of, looking back, kind of see as being kind of real game changers for the industry?
To be honest, I think the game changer for the industry was COVID. I think it really changed people's perspective on how the industry was run. I think it really encouraged people to think differently. Clearly, it did. COVID fundamentally changed the industry, and I think there's now an awful lot more thought given to using technology from a hub. From our point of view, we've covered international tournaments globally for years and years and years, and it's been done in a very conventional style, which is you will have studios on site, you will send talent on site, and that has high cost. And I think that there's been a real sort of push for remote technology, whereby there's much more consideration given to covering from your hub, from Doha, and doing more remote-based technology. So we're in a position you can still send talent to these major locations, but you're no longer maybe spending the same amount of money on technology and logistics. So really, I think we've invested more in technology in Qatar, in Doha, to make sure that we can still give the viewer the very best coverage, but it's done at significantly lower costs. And I think COVID was a real game changer for the whole industry. I think, it really changed how people looked, and it clearly, it was a huge issue globally. But I think that long term, from what we do, it forced us to think very differently, very differently.
So I have to ask you about AI. So how are you embracing it, sort of, as a business in broadcast?
I think there's been a lot of thought has gone into how we use it, and I think that there's a real push, and I think almost a pressure to feel like you have to use it. But I think that broadcasters as a whole, there's a lot of conversations going on about making sure that, I think being first isn't always being right, and I think we're sort of being very careful, because there's a lot of issues surrounding around AI. How we have used it is we found it particularly useful in our continue fight against piracy. We've had real success sort of trying to sort of reduce piracy issues. We use it internally. The big thing with beIN is that we receive an awful lot of English language content, but clearly our market is 90% Arabic, so we have to find a way of Arabizing that basically, or turning it into the Arabic language that can be used for Arabic viewers. And so we are now using AI as a tool as an automated tool to basically transcribe that, translate it from English into Arabic, which means that all that content can go out to 90% of our market. So that's sort of a really, really key thing. We probably aren't yet in a place where we're necessarily using it on screen. I think just because we need to be very careful about, I think, ultimately protecting our rights, and I think that's a big issue. And I think a lot of sort of broadcasters are having this same sort of internal conversations. I think because I think our view has been there's a pressure to be first, but I think often first can lead to mistakes. And I think we're just sort of maybe being a little bit more tentative with what we might see on screen.
So fast forward a few years, we're having the same conversation at Web Summit 2030. What does the world look like for you and beIN?
I think it's such a difficult question to answer as to what this looks like in 5 or 6 years' time. It's hard to know what this place will look like in 2 years' time. That's my honest opinion. I find it's super exciting, and it's a real challenge. But I feel like what we do, we're at a crossroads in that, and I think the whole of the industry is as well, because it's trying to spot these trends, and these trends are sort of ever changing, and I think it's trying to sort of, the issue is trying to capture the moment, but trying to sort of be continuously evolving, and trying to sort of, but I'm not really explaining it very well, but it's, I think it's really hard to sort of work out where we're going to be in 5 years' time. I think the big challenge we've got at the moment is sort of trying to capture the upcoming generation. I think the consumption of content has completely changed, and will continue to change. And so for me, I think it's how we grab our audiences, and that's a real challenge. And I'm not necessarily sure it's all about technology. I think it's also about the look and feel of the industry as well, from a diversity point of view, from an age point of view as well. But I think it is a real challenge. I think that our industry needs. I really think it needs youth. It's a really big thing. You have to see how people are sort of broadcasting content. It's completely changed. And I think the challenge for any broadcaster is to try and keep with those trends. And I think we're in one of the most challenging periods of media broadcasting, because I think that you're no longer competing with linear broadcasters. You are competing with so many different platforms, and you have to sort of join it. You have to join it, which means investment, because it means that you have to invest in multiple platforms in addition to what we do linearly on a linear channel. And I think it's a real challenge. And I feel like I'm being vague, but I think it's a question that we challenge ourselves on a daily basis. Where are we going to be in, never mind 5 years' time, what are we going to be in 2 years' time? And I think it's fascinating. It's really fascinating.
So moving into prediction territory now. So 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the line, what sort of world are we looking at?
I think it's absolutely fascinating. I think it's fascinating if you're a broadcaster. I think it's fascinating if you are a sporting federation. And I think there needs to be an awful lot of thought from both sides as to where we're going, because how we all consume our content is completely different to what it was 5 years ago. So God knows what it will be like in 5 years to come. But I think that I think broadcasters and sporting federations alike have a responsibility they need to adapt and they need to evolve, because attention spans have reduced. I think that people are no longer interested in long-form content. I think that is entertainment. Well, I think entertainment to a degree, but I think the sporting world as well. And I think that sporting federations are now concentrating so much more on short-form content. Their short-form content, personality-led content, that is what people are interested in nowadays. And I think that will, and is already fundamentally changing the landscape of what we do and how we make our coverage. we have to base our coverage. We have to think more about the personalities who are playing as opposed to necessarily the teams. I think younger generations are now interested in personalities, particularly internationally. It's really interesting, I think, that you look at domestic markets, I think there's still a very strong allegiance and affiliation to clubs. I think globally, people now set their stall out by what LeBron does, what Steph Curry does, what Ronaldo does, what Messi does, what Kylian Mbappe does. They're the drivers. They're the drivers, and I think they will be the drivers of what we all do going forward. And it's just trying to find a way of making sure that we try and capture that. So I think that there's a lot going on. I think there's a lot of sort of soul searching with various sports about how they try and reduce the amount of time that people spend on either a pitch, a court, because I think that people's attention span is less. NBA have recently completely revamped their format for the All-Star weekend because viewing figures were struggling, and I think that they're not the only ones who I think that, MLB the year before brought in a raft of changes. I think MLB matches the season before last were over 3 hours. They brought in a lot of changes that meant that I think last year they reduced the average playing time to 2.5 hours. So I think that's what everyone's driving towards. You look at sort of like tie-break tennis now or championship tie-breakers now in Grand Slam finals. You're no longer getting sort of fifth sets that go on for hours and hours and hours. You've got championship tiebreakers. Everyone's now looking to cut down and to try and make it more watchable. And I think that's our responsibility. I think the sports need the broadcasters, and I think we need to work hand in hand. And I think it's really fascinating, and it's different to technology, but that is the biggest fundamental issue that we're all dealing with, I think.
Steve, thank you for your time today.